Hello and welcome to MF Corner. I'm Sonal Bhutra in the Mumbai studio, and all of us make that contribution to Employee Provident Fund. Sometimes it is within the limits that are prescribed by the law, and sometimes it is more than that as well. So should you continue doing that, or should you actually invest that extra cash into something else, something like an NPS, a mutual fund as well? What is the correct way to go about it? So let's try and understand this with greater analysis and more examples as well. We have today joining us Mrin Agrawal, financial educator and a director at FinSave India Private Limited. Mrin, thank you so much for joining, and it's always a pleasure speaking with you. So, let's understand the most basic aspect first when it comes to Employee Provident Fund. What are the current knobs when it comes to EPF contribution for employees? How much do the employer and employee contribute individually?
Hello, Sonal. It's always a pleasure to be on your show. Off late, I've been getting a lot of these inquiries about whether we should contribute, on the full amount or on the statutory amount. So the basic rule is as follows, that on your basic, 12% of it is mandatorily deducted from the employee's basic and contributed towards the Employee Provident Fund. Now, the employer also makes a matching contribution, right? But the 12% that the employer contributes is divided as 8.33% into the employee pension scheme and 3.67% to the EPF, right? So, of late, as I was mentioning, there have been a couple of queries on whether to contribute on the entire basic or on the wage ceiling limit of 15,000. So what happens is that if you're going to be contributing on a lower amount, let's say on the 15,000, then that means that you're going to have more cash at hand and you're going to have a higher amount that's going to be coming into your bank account. But it also means that a lower amount is going to go towards your retirement fund.
Okay, that makes sense. That's the basic. So we have understood that. But let's go to the next case. In cases, Mrin, where EPF deduction is allowed on statutory amount, that is 15,000 rupees, it results in employees having more cash at hand, as you just explained. What are the financial implications in both the cases in that case?
So I have taken an example of a 23-year-old person earning a 10 lakh income. And we're assuming that the basic is growing by 3% every year. Also assuming EPF return is 8.25% per annum, and the person is following the new regime and is taking into account 75,000 rupees of standard deduction, right? So now, if the person contributes 12% of basic to the EPF, at the end of 37 years, or when the person is 60 years of age, the value of the EPF is going to be 3 crores. But if the person is contributing 1,800 rupees per month, which is the on the 15,000 statutory limit, then the EPS accumulated is going to be around 71.5 lakhs. However, the person is going to have another around 52,000 rupees per year extra that they will have for investing in other avenues. So really the choice now remains that, do I want this fixed return coming in without doing anything, let it just quietly come and quietly compound, or can I actually handle my investments better and generate a return better than the 8.25%?
That's a big question, right? EPF or no EPF, at least for the extra money that you have in hand when it comes to your salary and employment. So, Mrin, in that case, what are the key things employees should keep in mind while making this decision?
So firstly, do you have the ability to look at or choose investments which are giving you more than that 8.25% return? And you have the ability to remain invested in these instruments, because 8.25% tax-free, risk-free return is very difficult to beat. And obviously, to beat it, you will need to be investing in instruments where there's going to be a higher amount of volatility. So with volatility, of course, it really means that you actually have the ability to manage this particular volatility or not. So that's where the decision point is again, that do you want things to just continue the way they are, or are you able to look at investments? And right now with the markets doing well for the last couple of years, everybody feels it's very easy. I'll just go and put my money in equities and it'll just grow like really fast. But the point is that you should remember that there are going to be ups and downs, and the key is that how are you going to manage during these downs especially. So that's really the key point.
That's right. So a lot of things to be considered while you make that decision. Now, let's talk about those who are looking to contribute on the statutory limit. What are the investment options available here, if you can explain that in detail?
So there is obviously equities that is available. You also have within equities, of course, there's NPS and there's gold. So when we look at data from March 1980, and I got this from one of the handbooks. So when you look at the data from 1980 to 2024, on an average, you see that equity has grown by 16% and gold has grown by about 10.5%. So looking at the various investments that we have that can, first of all, beat this return and also beat inflation at the same time, you basically have only two instruments. One is one, and that too, which can be held for the long term. You only have two instruments. One is equities, and the other that you have is really gold. So these are the two choices that you have. Within equities, of course, there are a whole lot of instruments that are available. For example, you can buy stocks, you can buy stock baskets, but I wouldn't recommend these because what we've seen again with stocks and stock baskets is that people tend to chase recently performing stocks, and most people really do not have the ability to hold on these investments for a 30-year period. And again, investors are not able to keep up with the changing trends. So if you're going to buy a few stocks, and of course, the cycles keep changing, so people are really not able to keep up with trends. And hence, I always believe that a better way to invest is through managed equity investments. Like, for example, you have mutual funds. Of course, you also have NPS. It is a instrument which is meant for retirement. You can have a good amount of equity exposure over there. It's locked in till the age of 60, which means that you're really leaving that money over there for it to compound. And that's what actually really works for that particular instrument. So within the equity space, I would highly recommend either the equity mutual fund or NPS. And of course, you also have gold, which is available as an investment, though in the financial form.
That makes sense, of course. We'll discuss all of this in greater detail. It has been so helpful so far to discuss something else other than what we discuss usually, right? But we have to get into a quick commercial break. On the other side, we'll continue our discussion with Mrin Agrawal to understand how can you actually replace your excessive EPF contributions with other asset classes. Stay tuned for that. Welcome back. You're still tuned into MF Corner. We still have with us Mrin Agrawal, who's the financial educator and director at FinSafe India. Mrin, we've discussed a lot about the different categories that would work. Equities was one that you spoke about in detail as well. So within equity funds, there are so many types of funds, including retirement funds, right? How does one navigate the entire equity fund space in this case when you have the excess cash to invest here?
So when you look at the retirement funds from mutual funds, first and foremost, there are different types of funds available within this category. So there are some funds which are more focused on investing in bonds, and then you have some funds which are managed like balance funds. So they invest primarily in equities, but they also have a good amount of bonds in that particular portfolio. So first and foremost, if you are looking at the retirement mutual fund category, then please do go into detail in terms of what is the allocation between debt and equity, when you're comparing the different funds. Of course, when I looked at the performance of the retirement funds versus a simple aggressive hybrid fund category, which is like comparing it with a balanced fund category, what I saw was that the aggressive hybrid fund category has been performing consistently better than the retirement category. But that could also be because, when you look at it at a category average, you're also adding those funds which have a higher amount of debt holding, right? So, but what I found is that the aggressive hybrid category has done better. And then, of course, if you just look at the broad-based categories like a large cap fund or a mid cap fund, there's been a significant amount of outperformance over there as well. So, again, given the fact that most people still have a high amount of debt holding through other instruments in their portfolio, and given the fact that even if you are contributing a lower amount to the EPF, your retirement corpus is not going to reduce. And typically, most people need to have a retirement corpus between 6 to 8 crores. So if you need to reach that number, you need to have a higher allocation to equity for this particular goal. And I think most people can also do it if they are young and if they have more than 10 years left for retirement. Certainly, they need to be looking at higher equity allocation. So I would actually suggest that if you're looking at deploying this money in mutual funds, over looking at the retirement solution schemes or over looking at balanced funds, please consider the broad-based equities categories like, for example, large cap or mid cap or flexi cap category. A combination of these three categories would be a good way to start. And again, as I've said on the show earlier, that for those who are a little confused about which fund to choose, just starting off with a simple Nifty 50 index fund itself is a good idea.
Oh, that's always start with the basics. It would work for you, right? Further, Mrin, since you suggested NPS, where one can choose equities and bonds, and generally people tend to go with the default option. Can you share more about the implication of investment options chosen here?
So in NPS, you have option to go for the auto choice or the active choice. Now, when you look at the active choice, it's the choice where you can decide how much you want to put in equities and how much you want to put in bonds. So you have the equity option, you have option where you can put a higher amount in government bonds, and then you have an option where you can put a higher amount in corporate bonds, right? Now, there's nothing wrong with the debt category, but again, given that for most people, the retirement goal is a very long-term goal and you have time to let your money compound, it does make sense to choose the active equity option over looking at the debt options. And also when one looks at returns on a longer term basis also, of course, the active equity options have performed much better than the debt option. So I would say that if you are doing NPS, and I think NPS is a great investment, especially for the salaried, because remember, now you can contribute up to 14% of your basic and it's completely tax deductible. And that's in both old regime as well as the new regime as well. So even if you're not contributing the full amount to EPF, I would certainly say put some amount in the NPS since you're getting an additional tax deduction, as I said, applicable in both the regimes. And of course, look at the active equity. Now, many people tend to do the default option, which is going in for the auto moderate choice. So essentially, for those who find it difficult to figure out which option to go for, you have the auto choice where the funds are allocated between equities and bonds based upon your age in a predetermined manner. The issue with the auto choice is that the allocation to equity drops considerably. And if you see, for example, at the age of 50, there is only 20% allocation to equity. So again, just to reiterate, you still do need to build a large corpus, and to build that large corpus, you need to have a good equity allocation. And hence, as far as NPS is concerned, please look at the option where you can have the highest amount of equity, and that is the active equity choice.
Okay, all right, we take that point. It's so well explained there, Mrin. But you also mentioned gold ETF, and now with its taxation becoming favorable, how good this is as an alternate to EPF?
It is a good option, but I think Indians already have a very high exposure to gold in their portfolio. And in any case, we only recommend a 15% exposure. So, and again, when you look at household level, most people have less than 10% in equity. So I think they can certainly add equities to their portfolio over gold.
Okay, all right, take that point. So let's finish this off. We have around 3 minutes, so you can explain it with the example that we were talking about. What are your final thoughts on how to decide whether to contribute lesser to EPF or vice versa?
So again, if we take the same example of the 23-year-old earning 10 lakhs gross income and following the new tax regime. So now we had talked about having roughly about 52,000 per year extra to invest. And let's say now you invest this money in an equity fund. It could be equities or NPS, and I've assumed a return of 12% in both the cases. So yes, you do end up with a good number around 3 crores. And then on gold, I've assumed a more reasonable return of 9%. So you end up, of course, with a lesser amount out there versus continuing to contribute to the EPF at 12% of the basic. So there you're going to end up with a 2 crores number. But you know what, Sonal, it's not about this number because, these number calculations are easy for us to do on Excel. The point still remains that are you going to be able to manage these investments? And actually, even before managing the investments, are you going to be able to choose the right investments? Because as we are seeing right now, a lot of people are into trading. And of course, the regulator report has also come, which shows that more than 70% of people actually make losses. So again, with all the trend chasing that continues, and of course, whenever markets fall, the first question that people have is that should I stop my SIP? Should I exit my investment? So I think there's a bigger behavioral aspect out here versus the instrument, because the ability to first of all go in for a simple low cost mutual fund or NPS, most people are looking at exciting instruments, but what you need is the simple boring stuff. And the other bit is to really remain invested through the volatility. And mind you, right now a lot of investors have only seen the good times in the last few years. They haven't seen the bad times. So how will they be able to will they be able to remain invested? Will they be able to adapt to this volatility or not? Remains to be seen. And as I said, this arbitrage, one feels that there's a huge arbitrage that I'm only getting 8.25% here, but I have the option to get maybe 10 to 12% out here. But that arbitrage will work out only in one case, which is choosing the right instrument and remaining invested.
Totally take that point, because last 4 years have been very different. Everyone's seen elevated returns, which could not be the reality always, right? So it's always best, as you said, stick to boring. It could work for you in the longer term. Vrind, thank you so much for joining us today. It's always great speaking with you and to discuss something new every time. Okay, all right. With that, we'll take your leave on MF Corner today, but stay tuned for Closing Bell to take you through the last hour of trade.